One, welcome to the Senate Education Committee. We are not doing much for a while until we get two more people in here. They have not yet shown up, so we're waiting. Thank you. Start with the Senate Education Committee, and before we start, let's say, I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. You please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to start with an executive session. So I have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to take up Senate Bill 658. And we're doing that right now because it's an FN bill and it has to be out today. My motion for the 658 FN is interim study.
I'll second.
Discussion.
We had, Madam Chair,
Senator Altshuler.
thank you. So we did get an amendment from the prime sponsor to address issues that were brought up during the hearing.
Yeah, we have a sort of a,
Amendment 0735S, which added the executive director for the Children's Law Center of New Hampshire or designee.
this is the amendment.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
He's just adding somebody into the.
Exactly, and then changing, I don't know, there's 136, changing a number to, from 5 to 6, which I think was a quorum number.
Okay, further discussion?
It's just an advisory council.
The reason I am proposing interim study is that right now we have so many issues dealing with education and with school issues in New Hampshire. And this is a very broad one involving a lot of people, involving a lot of issues. And I think that it is not the proper time to take up something of this magnitude. Besides, it also has some financial implications. And as of this morning, I have no information from the fiscal about what the cost is going to be. So with that and the complexity of this commission, that's my vote is an interim study. Any other? Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Chair Ward. So I appreciate your perspective. I want to say two things. One is, from a policy perspective, you are correct. Well, let's talk financial perspective. We don't have a fully fleshed out fiscal note yet, but if this is a policy that we want to go with, we can defer the financial discussion to finance. That's not unheard of. The second thing is that we saw broad support for this in the hearing, and when I see safety and, developing safe and resilient schools frameworks, I think, it is all encompassing to deal with, and I believe consolidate these complex issues that you are, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I think what I'm hearing from you are you think it's very broad and that there's too much going on, but this would take all of these issues that we have been over the years that I've had the honor of sitting on finance with you and put them into one particular place to create a constructive framework. So I think it serves to consolidate. I think that it is constructive. It focuses on safety and resiliency within our schools. And we saw, and again, we only saw people come in and talk in favor of this, and we can deal with let finance deal with the financial issues on this, should there be a concern there. So I think it's a solid policy, and I'm going to vote to support. I'm not going to support an interim study motion. I'd like to vote that down and do an ought to pass. That's my 10 cents. Thank you. Maybe 25 cents.
Thank you. Senator Abbas? Senator Altshuler?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, just to remind the committee that before we are hastily go to interim study based on finances, is that this bill actually creates a space for federal and state grants, private sector grants, gifts and donations related to safety and resiliency to be able to be held by the state treasurer for these purposes. So it's not a state expenditure, it's actually a holding space. And I'm looking at page 3, lines 10, 11, and 12. So it allows for the treasurer to invest any of these monies and create a non-lapsing fund so that this committee can make recommendations as to what would be appropriate expenditures or create in-state grants for the purposes of safe and resilient school programming. So it's not the state looking for money, it's the state looking for a space to park money that may come in based on this particular topic. And we got a lot of, we got a lot of support for this bill from, therapists and NAMI and pediatric OTs weighing in that this is something that they see a real value for. So I think we just, create the space for money to land is not an expenditure for us.
Senator Abbott, do you have anything?
Another FN bill without a fiscal note.
Right.
That's the first thing I noticed. And this is not necessarily fatal to the policy, but I just thought on page 1, lines 18 to 19, I think the goal of this is to obviously have early intervention to mental health crises. I don't think there's a problem with that. It says, and other behavioral issues. I think that's much broader than I think it appears on paper. If you want to focus on student safety and intervention and school safety, allowing the advisory council authority to look into any behavioral issue, I think you want to maybe clean that language up.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, here we are yet again with another committee to study what's going on with our children and their safety in schools. Schools are supposed to have safety committees of their own. We have anti-bullying policies. We have a study committee in to look at bullying because those policies are apparently not being upheld. City of Manchester had 1,100 incidents of violence last year. I don't know what the word resilient is supposed to mean other than, kids get bullied and just have to keep going to school because it's not being addressed. I don't think anything in this actually helps with those issues that are very local issues. These need to be addressed with local boards and find out what's going on inside these buildings locally. And from the conversation today, it seems like this is just about some place to put more money. That more money has more strings and less control because we're getting it from outside places. They're going to tell us how to spend the money. I don't see how any of this actually solves the problem that the bill says that it's going to solve. And
Yeah,
perhaps
further-
that comes out in the interim study.
Any further discussion? So we have a motion on the floor for interim study on Senate Bill 658. It has an
Senator Ward,
FN
two things.
notice
One,
to it.
are we dealing with the amendment? And then I did have a comment.
Senator Prentice, what was that?
Are we dealing with the amendment? Where are we with the amendment 0735S? I think that has to be managed first, and then, did I miss something? Trevor?
Because it's a negative motion, the amendment hasn't been
okay.
introduced.
All right.
So are you ready to vote on 658 FN?
Yes, ma'am.
We have an interim study with a second. All those in favor of interim study?
Aye.
Aye. 3. Senator Altshuler?
Nay.
And
Yeah,
Senator
no way.
Prentice? There's 2. So we have a 3-2 for interim study on 658. I'll take it out. Okay, let me have what? 9:32. Okay. Need the motion to get out of executive session?
Motion to move out of executive session.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go over to the bills for today. We'll start with House Bill 1808. And the prime sponsor is Representative Ladd.
You got it.
Good morning, Chairman, Senator Ward, and members of the Senate Policy Committee. Yes, it is like being in a chasm in here. I'm here today my name is Rick Ladd. I come from Haverhill, New Hampshire, where we had -8 this morning on the thermometer. And, sorry. And I'm here to introduce 1808. And basically, I do have a sheet which I presented to the House Committee when this bill was moving forward. This is the second time this bill has come before you requesting an analyst at the Department of Education. It came to you back in 2023 as a request from the Department of Education. And what it does, it puts in place an academic research and improvement performance data analyst at the department, which they do not have. We know that roughly 3 out of every 4 employees at the Department of Education are paid with federal dollars. We know that the federal employee, or the one being paid by those dollars, is more attentive to complying with all the paperwork and contracts and grants, et cetera, that come down from the federal government. We do have state legislation, however, our state adequacy and other areas of curriculum development which need attention. And we are looking at a department over there that's very thin in terms of support staff, employees to assist us with our needs here in this state. What this position does, it will work with Director Nate Green, who is sitting behind me today. And if you have a copy of the bill in front of you, and underneath Section 1, Roman 2, it explains what the 4 primary reasons for this bill might be: to measure student progress, to evaluate program and instructional effectiveness, and guide curriculum development and resources allocation, and promote accountability. Years ago, I can recall when we had differentiated aid, we had another category called remedial reading. And we did that if a child was a remedial reader in the 3rd grade, they got X number of dollars under differentiated aid. The issue there was we never were able to follow that cohort of students through with our testings in terms of we would put money in at 3rd grade, and then that same cohort of kids would move through 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grades, where we also have achievement testing, but we never tracked, we never followed. We never knew if that we were making gains or not. We do know that if you're looking at areas like mathematics right now in this state, there's a drop-off in achievement scores at approximately the conclusion of the middle school levels in grades 7 and 8. There's a drop. Why is that drop occurring? Is it that we're not funding things properly? Is it that we're not assessing what we're doing? Is it that we're not looking at the data that's being provided on our achievement tests? Are we digging down beyond the surface, although you got this as an aggregate score? Are we digging down to find out within, for example, mathematics, are there specific skills which are not being taught correctly in this school versus being taught well over in this school? And can we take what that school is doing and share that information with other schools? A lot of times it's just how we're using our personnel. It's not necessarily the number of dollars we're throwing at a particular subject. What we need to do is we really need to be more supportive of our schools and providing that support in our curriculum development and are using achievement and test results analytics-wise to ensure that we're getting the best use of this material. I don't think we are. In fact, my talking with the commissioner is that this is still a huge, huge need that they need. They do not have the personnel to really support these curriculum areas within the schools. We have curriculum frameworks, but we have nobody in charge of curriculum frameworks. Academic standards, who's ensuring the academic standards are being followed? All this under this area of instruction and analytics comes underneath Dr. Green's bailiwick. He's in charge of everything that comes underneath 193E. That's adequacy. And these achievement scores definitely identify and are giving us the information, but are we really utilizing that information properly? I don't believe we are. We need to be looking down, and rather than going out and buying a whole new curriculum in mathematics, perhaps what we need to be looking at, where are the holes in these schools, so we can fix what the holes are, rather than going out and realigning. Are we teaching it in a way we should? Is our instruction on task? Are we structuring our staff properly so we are giving the most attention to the areas that we need to, that are weaker? And so with this, we need more support from our New Hampshire Department of Education, and they need the staff to do that. Curriculum and instruction are local issues, responsibilities. But we also have responsibilities, which we set as a state, those academic standards and our accounting process. We got to make sure that our accounting instruments, our assessment instruments are aligned with our instruction and curriculum. This is the person which will help us do this. This is the person we need in the field, working with Dr. Green and ensuring that we are accomplishing and using the data properly. And at this point in time, we don't have the staff to do it. If we take federal staff, as I mentioned earlier, and use it for state, we're going to be accused of misusing federal dollars. We need to have our state dollars addressing this particular issue. So, Madam Chair, I think this concludes what I'm trying to say. We passed this unanimously out of the House, out of education policy years ago, again this year. And so we're hoping that it's seen positively with the Senate. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Always good to see you, Representative Ladd. Can you tell me why we still don't have a fiscal note on this? It says that the first request was in November, the second was in December, and we still don't have a fiscal note.
There is a fiscal note.
We have, of course, the appropriation down below, the fiscal note. I read the fiscal note the other night too, but we have within this, there is hereby appropriated to the Department of Education sum of $160,000, and that will take care of this person who is an employee at the administrative 3 level. So there is a dollar amount there. You'll see most of your new staff which are coming in to the department are always identified about $160,000. So that's the estimate that I've gotten from them. I think that might be also something you might ask the department when they come up to testify in
I
this
just don't
bill.
have the page. Thank you, apparently I was missing a page, so I thank you very much for your answer.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a good day.
You too. I think Representative Popovich supports the bill but doesn't want to speak. Do you want to speak? Oh, okay. Okay. Anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this bill? Please come up. Identify yourself and
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to sign in on the sign-in sheet. My name is Dr. Nate Green. I'm a division director with the New Hampshire Department of Education. Just a couple of comments because I think Representative Ladd really framed the issue pretty well in his testimony on the reasons why we need this bill. But I think there's two things at play here. There's the what and then there's the why. The Department of Education right now does a lot of the what. We collect a lot of data about schools and about students and how they're doing in terms of math scores, reading, writing, science. But then we get a lot of questions about the why. And so I think because a lot of the federal requirements are around assessments and collecting the data, we have a lot of data. It's a huge amount of data. What we need now is someone who can come in and take a look at that data and actionalize it and figure out those why pieces. You know, why are we seeing dips in particular grades? Why are we seeing regionalized differences? And then what can we do about that to improve education? The department very much is in support of this bill, and I'd love to see this move forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions from the department too.
okay. Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. There's on line 21, there's an appropriation of $160,000. Is there any idea where that number came from?
Yeah, that's generally a standard number that we put on there. It reflects usually a salary of somewhere between $70,000 and probably $85,000, and then it also takes into account all of the rest of the money that we would need in terms of purchasing equipment, computer, ensuring that we're paying rent for our state buildings, the costs relative to insurance, benefits, unemployment, and all those other pieces of it. So it's encompassing of the full cost of hosting a position at the department.
Thank you.
Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Green, for taking my question. On line 14 of the bill, it says the data analyst shall promote accountability. What does that mean?
So our accountability system in New Hampshire, we actually have two systems that very much overlap with each other. We have a federal system that's part of our Title I program, and that's where our state assessment requirements come from. We also, in state law, have a requirement to administer a state test. And then what we do currently is we identify at a school level and at a district level the bottom 5% of school performance across the state. We do that at a full school level, so who are the schools performing in the bottom 5%? And then we also look at different student subgroups, depending on whether your particular special education population or your free and reduced lunch population are performing at different levels. And so we have an accountability system relative to where schools fall. This position would help to support those particular schools that have been identified as underperforming in terms of understanding their data and then taking that data and putting into practice the necessary steps they need to actually get out of being in that bottom 5%.
Thank you. May I follow up, Madam Chair?
Follow up?
So in that, I see the analyzing of that. I guess I'm not quite understanding where the promotion of accountability is, and perhaps it's just a definitional, because I'm thinking that you want to create a space, if I'm understanding your answer, you want to create a rubric for other schools that are less successful to follow those that are more successful? Is that what you're getting at?
I think so, yeah. If I could give an example. So we had a school that had a principal that worked very closely with the department over the last 3 or 4 years. It was an elementary school that had been identified as one of the schools in the bottom 5%. And they did a lot of, on their part, reaching out to the department and saying, hey, we're using our data in this way. We want to try this. Do you have resources you can connect us over here? And they were able to make pretty large academic gains with their student population over the course of 3 years and pulled themselves out of that bottom 5%. I will say much of that was probably due to the efforts of that local school principal reaching out and taking that charge. What we would love to do, I think in terms of promoting accountability, is to take what they did and have that person at the department then go out to those other schools and say, here are the things that are working. Here are the things that schools in your position have done that have worked, that have been effective, and kind of promote best practices.
Okay, and may I follow up?
Follow up?
Thank you. So within the analyzation of measurement of student progress, evaluate programming and instructional effectiveness, guide curriculum development and resource allocation, and promote accountability, I think I'd like to know under, and I've circled resource allocation, part 3, would this analyst be evaluating what the effects of how the state underfunds education and where property tax payers are able in some towns to create buffer zones for that versus other towns that don't have the ability to do that, and how that affects their education services?
So this likely wouldn't go to that level of analysis. I think that there is some level of analysis that does connect academic achievement funding, but oftentimes the funding situation is a much harder beast to solve for schools and districts. I think when we talk about resource allocations,
Yeah.
a lot of times what we're talking about is identifying the various streams of funding that are coming in and then working with school administration to effectively utilize those funding streams in a cohesive way. So if we look at the title programs as an example, your Title I funds are really addressing your lower income student population and specifically around things like literacy and math. But we also have Title II that focuses on professional development. And so if you have a school that is really struggling with reading and writing, but they're using their Title I funds to focus on math programs, and they're using their Title II funds to focus on professional development for science, they're not necessarily using their various funding streams to really focus on the identified problem. And so I think when we talk about resource allocation, it's really helping to understand how do you utilize those various funding streams to really target where the school needs to raise their academic achievement the most.
Last question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So with the federal funding, the title programs that we are currently managing right now, and if I'll dial back, is to Representative Ladd's presentation that 3 out of 4 employees are funded with federal funds because they are also managing these programs. Are those people not doing the analysis that we're looking at here for those programs? Is that not part of the grant, though?
So the folks that are working on those grant programs are generally focused on grant compliance. So they're
Yeah.
making sure that funds are being expended appropriately in the right categories. They're collecting grant applications, and they're doing it across all 530 schools or so. This position would really be looking at a targeted group of schools in a way that, you know, the current folks who are really just grant managers aren't necessarily able to do. But I also think that they each sort of focus very narrowly on a particular grant program, where this position would be able to look at both state funding and federal funding and local funding holistically with the approach of how do we sort of, you know, take those various funding streams and really target particular academic achievement gains, which really is not being done as part of just like the grant management portion of the federal staff that work on those grants.
Okay,
What's
one more.
One more.
You just brought something up in your answer there, that this bill would be a targeted bill, and I don't see that. I'm not seeing that in the legislation, that it's targeted toward one specific area. The legislation itself is, you know, the data analyst has a broad list of things to analyze. So when you're saying this is looking at a targeted group of schools, or where's the target? What are you targeting?
Thank you for the question. No, I appreciate the chance to clarify. I think the targeting part of it is
Yeah.
more dependent on the particular schools that the position would be working on. So each school may have a slightly different focus that they're, you know, looking at. Some schools may need additional help in reading and writing, but they're doing fantastic with math. Another school may have the opposite situation. So I think when I talk about targeting, I really mean more the position would be able to work on targeted issues identified by schools that need support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this bill? Seeing none, this concludes the hearing on House Bill, whatever the number is, 1808. Next, we'll take up, let's see, it's gonna be 9:45, 9:50. House Bill 1832. And the prime sponsor, Representative Morse. Is Representative Morse here? No? Representative Ladd, do you want to say something about it?
Chair of the Education Funding Committee. When this bill came to us, we also had to have somebody from the,
Excuse me, Adam, you left something on your chair. I apologize, Representative.
Don't say your name, I did anything for you.
Representative Morris did not show up to present the bill there either in the House. So it was introduced by another member of the committee. So I have nothing to say regarding this particular bill.
Okay.
Yeah, just I'll help introduce it.
Okay. Well, I'll read what it is. This bill adds students residing in New Hampshire with at least one parent or guardian on active military duty to the priority guidelines list for education freedom accounts. I have Kevin Whitey from the State Veterans Advisory Committee.
Yes, Senator.
Have a seat.
Thank you, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kevin Grady. I'm a 25-year Air Force veteran, and I'm a 28-year resident of the town of Hooksett, New Hampshire. Today, I'm here representing the State Veterans Advisory Committee because I do see a couple of unfamiliar faces. A quick commercial on what we do. We are chartered by state RSA 115:A-8. You can also find us through the Department of Military Affairs and Veterans Services website. We're chartered to speak for the veteran community in New Hampshire. And we have 20 member organizations whose names would be familiar to you. Things like the Veterans of Foreign War, the American Legion. All of the services have a representative. I personally represent the Air and Space Forces Association. And we have a legislative team, which I chair. We look at all the bills that you folks are bringing forward that have veteran impact. This year, there are 29 of them for this session. And we take a position on those, and then I come and I tell you what their position is. In the interest of full transparency, when this bill originally came out, the language on it we thought was not quite what we needed to have. So we elected to follow this bill with instructions for me to go and tell the House panel, here's what's wrong with the bill. And the bill has subsequently been amended to sort of include the things that we thought were missing the first go around. And we were going to fix that problem tonight and vote to support this legislation, except that we've canceled our meeting for this evening because of the impending storm. We just figured our people come from all over the state to go to this meeting, and we want to get those folks home okay. The problems with originally the way this bill was written, it said if you had permanent change of station orders to New Hampshire. And that's a little problematic. I want to make sure everybody knows that we do have an active duty Air Force squadron at Pease, right alongside our tanker squadron, flying the KC-46s and maintaining those things. So that all told is about 120 families who may or may not live in our state, frankly. They may live in Maine, or they may live in Massachusetts, or they may live in New Hampshire. But the people that we thought we were missing with saying that you had to have orders to New Hampshire were, in the southern tier, we have a lot of folks who live in the southern tier in Hudson and Nashua and places like that, and then they go to Hanscom for work. And their orders are going to say Massachusetts. Also, contrary to popular belief, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is actually in Maine. So your orders are going to be to Maine. They're not going to be to New Hampshire. And there's a last category, again, really small numbers. In the military, we have a thing called a remote tour, an unaccompanied tour overseas, where you go and you spend a year away from your family. And it's possible that a military member may, because they have family in New Hampshire, elect to move their family to New Hampshire while they're overseas to have that additional support from family members. So we thought that the permanent change of station orders to New Hampshire was overly restrictive, and we asked the sponsors to amend this to basically say, if you have one of the parents is active duty military and you reside in New Hampshire, then you're eligible for this program. And if the goal of the EFA program is to treat all of our students the same, and if we accept the fact that if a family lives in New Hampshire, whether they're actually legal residents of the state of New Hampshire or not, as military members are allowed to be a legal member of another state if they're here on official orders, but if they're living in our state, we're responsible for educating their children. So seeing those two things together, we feel this is good legislation. It's a nice thing to do. We think that we're talking about small numbers, but we think that it's a nice thing to do if we can afford it. We think it's a nice thing to do for our families. It also fits right in with a bill you're going to get sooner, House Bill 1415, which is about the New Hampshire First for Veterans program. This is a priority for the governor to try and attract veterans to our state when they're finished with their military service, to make their lives and their careers here and settle here permanently. We think that this kind of fits right in with that thing. And so for that reason, we do support this legislation. We just need to dot the i's and cross the t's on it as far as our members are concerned. That's all I really wanted to tell you. Hopefully that gave you some insight into the actual bill and what we're looking to do here.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. Reading the methodology section of the bill, as it's passed by the House, it doesn't seem to include the Army National Guard. Is that the intent to not exclude that, or would you have any objection to adding that to it?
The intent here is that the active duty military people that happen to be here are transients. They're going to roll in and then roll out again as long as they're still on active duty military. The Guard people, the assumption is that they all live here. And those people already have access to the EFA programs. Now, when I listened to the hearing, and I'm not the expert on this, there's a difference between eligibility for the program and then a priority list for the program. So those as I understand them, are two separate things. And I don't know where this legislation would fit in that, in terms of whether somebody would say, well, they're eligible for it, but we're not sure we want to put them on the priority list for it. So those are two separate things that you can consider. But the National Guard folks, those folks all typically they're residents here, or if they live in New Hampshire, or Massachusetts or Maine, then their children go to school in Maine or Massachusetts, and they would not be eligible for this program, at least as far as I would look at it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Chair Ward. Thank you for taking my question. So when you talk about the transient nature, or the mobile nature of active members of the military, I know we have the Military Interstate Compact for Children that covers, it smooths out the line. This is one of the compacts that all 50 states are a part of.
Right.
And I think, when New Hampshire was one of the early adopters, which we should all be proud of, so that if you're moving from state to state and with military orders, that nature of, that can be difficult for a transition, it smooths all that out.
Right. I'm familiar with the compact, and the good part about the compacts really is that it tries to put our active duty military kids who are moving, and believe me, they're making sacrifices just like the military member is to do this, kind of on an equal footing. And it does things like, for example, normally we try and move people in the summer because it just makes it easier for transitioning into school. But if you had to move in the middle of the school year, for example, it allows for things like, the basketball team is already formed, but you'd like to be on the basketball team, but the tryouts were back in then. This kind of gives them that little edge to be able to try out and maybe make the team. And it also tries to smooth out their academics. But military people move whenever the military says there's a need for you to move. And I've moved in February. I've moved in August. I've moved in December. So it just, whenever especially like if you're going overseas or coming back from overseas, you could really end up on kind of an odd cycle of when you move in and you move out. And so that compact, as you said, Senator, is designed to help smooth those edges out and give those kids a fighting chance.
Thank you. So as a chair, can I have a follow-up? Chair Ward, Mike, follow-up? Yeah. Thank you. So are we, without the sponsor here, and you've done a nice job, representing what you know of this, is there, and considering that we're a part of MI3, MIC3, I should say, is there a particular are children making this transition? And if they're, say, homeschooled, or they've got a choice issue, or the compact should smooth that out for them already. And so I would want, do you have any insight on that? Because to me, the compact should already be doing this job for them here.
I agree. And obviously the individual family will have to take a look at their individual needs as to whether, if we're only going to be here for a year, does it make sense to homeschool my children versus does it make sense to put them in the public system?
Private school, yeah.
Versus also, for example, if this is one of those critical years you know, like when they're making a transition out of the elementary school into the middle school, or out of the middle school into the high school, or worse, and this happens too, is, you know, this is their senior year in high school, and they moved here and they know nobody. You know, how do we help those folks out? And maybe we put them in a different school for their high school years, especially if we feel like they bounced around a little bit and they really could use a little additional schooling. We might want to think about putting them in a private school in order to be able to, you know, catch them up a little bit.
So, quick follow-up, we do have a commissioner from the MIC3 that's actually located here in Concord at the Broken Ground School. I just think we should touch base and make sure, I want to know what the difference is, because to me, this seems like that the compact already sets up the placement and priority, as should be for military children. I have a member of the military that works with me full-time, and her family in the 6 years we've been together has moved 4 times. And they have one small child and a second one on the way, God bless. So I understand all of that, but I think the groundwork has already been laid. So I would want to hear, I don't know who the appropriate person is to follow up with. It's Kyle Rapucci, but is there, you know, what's the problem, and is there a difference? And if the compact's already doing this job, is this necessary? That's what I want to know.
I'm
I don't
sorry,
think you
Senator.
know, but if you
I
can
don't
help us
think
with
I
that.
can answer that question very well. There are a lot of times in my line of work, working with the State Veterans Advisory Committee, where we have to say, we really like the concept, but the stubby pencil work as to how it would actually work out in real life, or what rules or RSAs need to be changed because they also affect this and that. We're not the experts on that. Sometimes it's my job to just come and tell you that we like the idea. It seems like it would be a nice thing to do for military members. You are the folks that will have to figure out, well, are there additional impacts, or is there a budgetary impact that we haven't thought of, or something like that?
No, appreciate it. Maybe someone from the Department of Education can help with this, with my
Okay.
question. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Senator.
Any further questions?
Thank you for
you
the
very
opportunity to
much.
speak, Senator.
Anybody else in here who wishes to speak to House Bill 1832? If not, we'll close the hearing on 1832. And next, we have House Bill 709. And Representative Burnham?
I think Representative Ladd will do the honors again.
Representative Burnham? Okay. Let me just read what the bill is all about. This bill allows parents or guardians to admit their children into any school district where they pay any property tax or school district taxes. And I do have somebody who likes to speak on the bill, Barry Christina.
I think Senator Ward just did it from her seat.
Thank you, Chairwoman Ward. Good morning, members of the committee. Barry Christina from the New Hampshire School Boards Association. We are opposed to House Bill 709. A couple questions we have relative to the bill. How would this apply to renters? You know, the bill says they pay property or school district taxes. Now, I understand that, you know, your property taxes are baked into your rent, the same way utilities maybe, but those people are not directly paying property taxes or school district taxes. So would that make renters ineligible? The second question I have, would this relate to commercial property, or does it just have to be a residence? If, you know, an individual or a dad or a family owns a rental unit in a different town, does that constitute them paying the property or school district taxes? Presumably, but paying, you know, commercial property doesn't necessarily relate to residents, if you will. Third, we have a handful of families in New Hampshire where they are not renters, but they are living with a relative. Mom and the children may be living with grandma and grandpa for one reason or another. The way this is worded, I don't think that they would be eligible to take advantage of the proposal with this. I guess another aspect, the second property that the family may own or the individual or the parents may own, does it have to be in current use? Can it just be an empty plot of land somewhere that people are waiting to, sell to give to the grandkids or build a second home at some point or another? That's not clear. Another aspect is that it says where the parents pay the property taxes. What happens if the parents are delinquent in paying their property taxes for one way or the other? Is it have paid property taxes at any time, or do they have to be up to date on their property taxes? And I guess the larger concern that NHSBA has with this bill is that we are concerned that it could cause some chaotic calculations with how school funding is derived. We know that in RSA 198:40-A, the cost of an opportunity for an adequate education, all the funding, the per pupil cost, the differentiated aid is based on average daily membership in residence. We know we have the two terms, average daily membership in residence versus average daily membership in attendance. School funding is tied to the residence. So we're going to have to ascertain, and I don't think the bill properly addresses this, is what town is the student going to be a resident for school purposes? Is it where they actually reside, where they lay their head at night, or is it going to be where they're attending school? But adequate education aid is derived from average daily membership and residence, the differentiated aid for the free and reduced price calculations, the average daily membership and residence for English language learners, you get additional money on your adequacy aid, and then the special education services, you get additional money in your adequacy aid for your average daily membership and residence. So for those reasons, NHSBA is opposed to the bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Okay, we already have intra-district school choice. We passed that law last year. And we chose to interim study the portion that would allow students to transfer between
SAU,
SAUs.
yep.
So wouldn't those two combined solve the problem that this is seeking to?
Thank you for the question, Senator. The first bill from the bill last year, I would say no, because intra-district, the money is going to save the same whether or not the child goes to Elm Street Elementary School or George Washington Elementary School. It's within the city of Manchester, so Manchester is still getting the adequacy aid. The sort of, just for lack of a better phrase, the open enrollment aspects relative to the SAU. I mean, we oppose that, so I don't think it would solve the problem. It would be one way, it would be another avenue to, I think, to achieve what this may be trying to get at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none,
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who wish to speak? Mr. Jerry Fruit, come on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for not signing in. In the efficiency of the clerks, they scoop the sheet before I get a chance to sign in, but I appreciate the indulgence. Jerry Frew, New Hampshire School Administrators Association, and I will not repeat the points that Mr. Christina made, but as with other open enrollment bills, we would just urge that careful consideration be made to the implications that may not be yet realized by this particular piece of legislation. I think about Barrett's comment about commercial properties and what potentially could happen with open enrollment in our cities, particularly where non-city residents, and I'm going to pick on Salem, people own business properties in Salem that don't necessarily reside in Salem. Yet this would allow them to enroll their students in Salem schools, potentially over time, causing stress on the Salem school system. For example, when students enroll at the elementary level in open enrollment plans, are they allowed to stay perpetually? In the student's best interest, they should be allowed to stay perpetually in that receiving district. But if Salem has multiple elementary schools and those schools all feed into a middle school, does at some point there become created an issue of overcrowding at the middle school or subsequently the high school? And where does the responsibility for supporting those staffing changes and requirements rest? And again, there are lots of open enrollment concepts that have many unanswered questions. We simply ask that all of these open enrollment pieces get bundled together and talked about as a body of a concept so that those questions can be answered so that communities, Manchester, Salem, Seacoast communities aren't blindsided by unanticipated consequences of open enrollment. And I think it's really important to think about what implications could eventually impact the local school systems. That's it. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 709.
We have 1 minute, Madam Chair.
1 minute? Okay.
To 9:50. In-person executive.
We have to wait 1 minute just in case somebody pops in here at 10:15.
Exec?
Hmm?
Can exec something? Would please
For
chair?
1 minute, no. Okay, I have 10:15, and we'll open the hearing on House Bill 1373. And the sponsor is Representative Litchfield. Representative Litchfield? Not here, okay.
Representative Ladd, what's going on over there?
Are they all at Granite Place?
Do you want me to introduce it?
You can read it. Well, you can just, well, do you want to, you can go over
Do you
there.
want me to go over there?
If you want.
I think Representative Ladd is feeling.
Oh. Did you want to?
Well, if you want somebody doing it,
You can do it.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This one I'm somewhat familiar with. HB 1373 is dealing with the background check disqualifications for applicants seeking educator credentials. And we've dealt with this in my committee, education funding, but this is education policy we're talking about right here. So knowing that Steve Appleby, the director of this program at DOE, is here today, I'd like to have him speak to the bill rather than myself.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So, Mr. Appleby.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the record. Steve Appleby, Auburn, New Hampshire, Director at the New Hampshire Department of Education. In front of you, HB 1373, we've endeavored to add some offenses that we screen for right now as part of our licensing process. I made a little cheat sheet that is getting handed out, which actually tells you what each of these numbers means and what offense we're adding. So if you look at the handout, all of the offenses in bold are the ones that this bill would add to our list that we screen for. As you'll see, these are typically felony offenses. So I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little gobsmacked that this has to be added, that we aren't already doing these. So, were you surprised that we weren't doing these? Yes, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else with questions? So we added six new categories.
And I would just note, because this came up in the House committee meeting, these are convictions, not charged with, or these are, if this is on your record that you've been convicted of it, or charged pending disposition, so you haven't gone through the court process yet, that's what these offenses refer to. These are not, you had a charge, but it was dropped or not prosecuted. That's not this. This is, you've either charged pending disposition, which probably means you're out on bail, or you've been convicted and it's on your criminal history record check.
Madam Chair, may I just read what they are for people that are actually watching at home and don't have the legislation in front? So the 6 added would be negligent homicide, second-degree assault, domestic violence, felony robbery, felony forgery, felony false academic documentation.
That one always creates questions. So that last one, we actually have a state law that has that listed, as you can see by the number. And this addresses instances where this is not someone who sends us a false transcript for their applying for their license, which we get those, but they haven't been convicted. They're just falsifying their application. We have another state law that deals with that. This is an instance where, and we've seen this in other states, specifically, I believe it was Georgia, that had a case where a principal and several teachers were arrested and charged with falsifying student assessments, right? And they were convicted of this. And so if you're convicted of a felony of falsifying academic records, perhaps you shouldn't, be running a school again. So, but this does not, just to be clear, this is not, because again, this came up in House Ed, this is not a situation where someone falsified their note to the teacher to get out of class. That's not what this is.
Half of us would be in jail. I just out myself. It was just me.
Any other questions or further discussion on this? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we could make it to executive session and hold the service. Okay, anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak on this? Seeing none, that closes the hearing on House Bill 1373. And this also closes the public hearing. And I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Aye. Senator Francis? Okay. And Senator Altshuler?
I said aye.
Okay, good. So we are now in executive session, and we can start with the one that we just looked at. House Bill 1373.
I'd like to make a motion about to pass.
You have a motion of ought to pass, and I had a second. Any discussion?
If you'd like, I think obviously the academic falsifying academic documentation is clearly should be on here. Felony robbery, I'm surprised it's already not on there. Domestic violence, second-degree assault. Again, those are all felony forgery, which it takes a premeditated intent to defraud someone by falsifying several documents. I mean, there's a lot of different examples you can do with that. Negligent homicide, that involves, if someone were to kill someone while they're like drunk driving, I understand that you still killed someone.
Yep.
So, but I think that's worthy of being on here, but I don't see any objection to any of these.
So have an ought to pass in a second, and I don't see much discussion. All those in favor of ought to pass?
Aye.
Aye. Senator Altshuler?
I said aye.
Okay. So that's 5-0.
Make a motion of consent?
Second.
Consent, all those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Who wants to take it out?
I'll take it.
Sullivan will take it out. Okay. Let's go back to the older ones. That one is done. Senate Bill 403. That is the one having to do with the kids starting before Labor Day or after Labor Day. We'll have a motion.
You make a motion, interim study?
I'll second that.
Motion is interim study. Any discussion?
I can speak on that, Madam Chair. I respect the concept that more time for families, I understand the business community thinks there'll be a benefit to this. A lot of our tourism dollars come from people coming here out of state, but ultimately, I think, and I'm talking really elementary level schools, they like to ease the kids back in. I don't think it's the end of the world and it's doomsday if they just start that Tuesday after Labor Day, unless it's our primary day, by the way, which in 2028 may be problematic in the sense that I know Pelham and Salem uses schools for voting stations, and I just think having your primary and your first day of school on the same day can be hectic. I know like the middle school will stay open during the primary, yeah, but that's a lot tall order to ask if you want your primaries done right. But ultimately, easing the kids back in, they have 2 days, then they have, a long weekend, then it's a 4-day week, and then they're back into it. I think that's a good policy if they want to do that. The schools could already do this if they want, start after Labor Day. I know there was some talk about the union contracts. I mean, every contract has language in there. If something becomes, if the law changes or becomes illegal, it adjusts automatically. So I'm not as persuaded by that, but I think easing the kids back in is getting their schedule. Having young kids, I always say keeping a consistent routine, which my wife taught me this, and keeping a consistent routine with young kids is a benefit. So getting them into a routine, I think ultimately benefits the kids getting back to school.
Okay. Any further discussion? Senator Prentice?
No,
okay.
I'm a center Abbas.
Okay.
So I disagree. Manchester has started after Labor Day. The other schools that my kids were in started after Labor Day. I thought it was a great way to do it. Contracts are supposed to be on the local level, so for us to do it from the state level, I'm a little on the fence about. But when you're talking about consistency, what you described was sort of three like half starts, not really out of the gate. So the first week it's a half week, and then the next week's Labor Day, so it's a half week, and then we've got voting the next week. So it's not really consistency. It's false starts 3 times, where when you're doing it after Labor Day, it's more consistent, except for the schools that do close for our elections. So I actually support Senator Gannon on this bill. I'm going to vote against the study.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on it? So who is supporting interim study? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to 1. Okay.
Move
You want to put that on consent?
Second.
He's going to pull it anyway, so.
So 4 to 1 on consent?
So that means it's not,
Pardon?
consent has to be unanimous.
I thought you had, if you had a majority like 4-1, you could put it on consent. No, okay.
You can put it on consent if the vote is 4-1 on the motion itself, but on the consent motion, it has to
Okay.
be unanimous.
I'll vote to put on consent. I think he's going to, Senator
Okay,
Gannon's
consent.
going to pull it anyway, so.
You want to take it out?
Say yes.
You already taken one out.
I can pick it up.
Abba's can take this
You're on
one
the
out.
wrong side.
I think you're on the wrong side.
Okay, the next one is Senate Bill 431.
They said you're on the wrong side.
Do I have a motion on that one? Uh,
Make a motion about to pass.
Where are we? I got lost too. 431?
Yep.
431.
That's the mental state and lying at it intentionally and knowingly. So Abbott, you said ITL or ought to pass?
Ought to pass.
I'll second.
Pass. Okay, have an ought to pass with a second.
And just briefly, some of the,
Discussion?
with the existing law, some of the concerns the court had was there was a lack of mental state in the law. This puts a mental state in. Whether you support the underlying policy or not is a different story, but putting a mental state in the law makes sense. And it probably should have been in there in the first place, so. We
Okay,
can debate the underlying policy all day, but simply adding a mental state, I think intentionally is, or knowingly is the right language.
it really says you have to take into account the mental state of the person.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair?
Senator
Oh, wait.
Altschuler?
Yeah, I want to thank the, our staff here for, thank you so much for putting the remote testimony lists in our folders. I really appreciate that. I'm hoping we see that in all the other committees too. And it's worth noting that 361 people took the time to log in and against this bill and only 6 in support. And not even all of the co-sponsors supported their own bill. So I would, this bill is something that nobody asked for, the people don't want, and actually throws vagueness on topics that the law is, you know, it throws a lot of vagueness on topics, and is, in my opinion, having read this and heard the testimony and reviewed, that this is designed to sow confusion and limit what teachers say, and I think, you know, it's going to cause a lot of problems.
Further discussion? Did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Senator
So I
Sullivan?
just want to speak to the fact, like, I did not sign in support of this because my name is on it. I think a lot of people that co-sponsor bills, that is their indication that they sponsor the bill. They don't need to, again, they'll go in and sign in on it. And I think we need to be careful when we're speaking about the bill, any bill, and we speak to intent of the sponsor of the bill or the co-sponsors of the bill. I don't think that someone else should speak to somebody's intent. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Senator Altschuler?
I would like to clarify, I did not speak to anyone's intent. I stated factually who signed in, who didn't sign in. So that's, if you infer from that, that's not a me problem. Factually, who signed in and who didn't sign in was very, very well documented, thanks to our staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I was speaking to the fact that the senator referred to the fact that the intention was to sow, to sow confusion. That's not the
So,
intent of the bill.
if I may, Madam Chair,
Senator Abbas?
I know that there's talk about confusion with the law here. This is something, and I'm not saying that this is something that was before this law passed, was happening at schools all over the place, but when it talks about what topics that are not allowed to be taught in the school, and you apply a mental state, which means they're doing it intentionally. So they're intentionally, this is what, I just want to read one of them, that they're not allowed to do. That an individual, by virtue of his or her age, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, marital status, or family status, mental or physical disability, religion, or national origin, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. Like, have that taught in a school intentionally is, I don't even see where that fits into the curriculum, to teach young children that people are inherently racist or inherently sexist. Like, to teach them at that age to say that. Now, whether you believe that theory or not is another story, but is that something that's appropriate to be done in the elementary and middle school level, even in the high school? That's what this is talking about. How people are confused by that they can't intentionally teach that, as if it's to the other one has to do one's age, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, marital status, family status, mental or physical disability, or religion or national origin is inherently superior to people of another. Why would you be teaching that in a school intentionally, or knowingly teaching that at a middle school level, that certain races are inherently superior to others? Again, is this a problem that's happening sweepingly throughout the state? I'm not saying that, but that's the existing law, and we're applying a mental state to it. That's all this bill is doing, that you're doing it intentionally.
Okay. Any other further discussion, Senator?
I'll
Palacios?
jump in, thank you. So we do have a court decision that's still under appeal that relates to this. But I do, I brought up during the hearing, and I'm going to bring it up again, that I have a concern about getting in and telling teachers what they, basically making them afraid to do their job, which is educating. And if educating is presenting both sides of an argument, not that one race is superior to another, but explaining the history of, say, racial conflicts, and I brought up specifically gender conflicts in my questioning, and it's in the hearing report about, a situation where, it was on the front page of the newspaper that, Dartmouth College looked at its athletic department. There was a complaint that there was discrimination, that men in that department were being paid more than women. I believe it was coaches. This is back in like 2021, 2022. And it turned out, that it's true that there was a disparity in pay. And so the college did the right thing and corrected that. So if I came into a classroom as a local educator, wanted to talk about current events, and I brought this up, would I be in violation of this law? And that's a concern I have, is that we're starting to meddle into and parse these even day-to-day, daily, top of the news issues. So that's where I come from on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, you can't, teaching about history, if you want to talk about the history of the Civil War, slavery, you can do that. This is when you're saying teaching that one race is actually inherently superior to another. That, if you're actually implementing that, that's what's not allowed. Teaching about our country's history is permitted. And there's nothing in here suggesting that it's not permitted. You're allowed to teach those topics because you're talking about the history, and you can talk about all of that you can talk about wage inequality. You're basing on statistical data that's out there, which that's a fact. There is wage inequality in this country. It exists. You can teach that, but this is not saying just because there's wage inequality doesn't mean that you're teaching that one gender or sex is superior to another. That's, if you teach that is what's not allowed, and it has to be very specific. And people can say vague all they want. It's very clear to me what you can and can't do here.
Okay. Senator Alchilla?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to recall back to something that we heard in testimony from another bill is, regarding the what and the why. And I would say that, with respect to what Senator Abbas is talking about, you're talking about the what. Was there wage inequality? Yes, there was. Yes, there is. Now we're getting into the why. Why is there wage inequality? And so when you start to talk about the whys, if you introduce the vagueness outlined in this bill, you're putting educators in very, very precarious positions where the interpretation of teaching the why is now up for debate. It's now up for the threatening of their license. And that is the chilling effect that we hear from educators. And we got in this list of 361 people who said no in our letters that said, I'm a concerned parent, no. This is a bill I find abhorrent, no. I mean, it goes on and on. So when we want to talk about the why, why did the Stonewall riots happen? What precipitated that landmark event in our country? Are we allowed to talk about that? Because right now we have a federal government who is actually suppressing that kind of information. So if we have a federal government that says, no, you can't talk about that, we're not going to talk about that, and then the state passes a law that puts that in kind of a questionable place, we are endangering our teachers to not be able to actually teach because we have this arbitrary enforcement with a vagueness on certain topics. And, I brought up during the discussion that, when before the 70s, women were not allowed to have their own bank accounts or own property without the permission of a parent, of their father, not a parent, their father, or a spouse, and that spouse had to be male. So can we talk about the why? Can we talk about the history of the LGBTQ rights movement? Can we talk about the things that make our country what it is now? Can we bring up in conversation that we have Supreme Court justices who say it's okay to profile brown people in Home Depot parking lots? Why? Why is that okay? That's the kind of thing that this bill is going to suppress and possibly get our teachers into positions where they are defending their license for talking about real topics. This is a dangerous bill.
Madam Chair, the answer to the question is, yes, you can teach all of that. What you can't teach is that someone is inherently sexist because of their sex, and that's why there's wage inequality. You can't, because now what you're saying is all sexes, like all men are sexist towards women. You cannot teach that. And we're talking about 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds that you're teaching this to. We're talking about young children to teach that you're inherently racist or you're inherently sexist. That is different than talking about our history. And you can talk about and teach that, and that's a part of our history. But to say that all members of this race are racist because of their race, that is what it's excluding. And to me, I don't even know how that would find its way into a curriculum. I'm glad it's not
this isn't overwhelming our educational system, but these topics that apply mental state to it, again, the underlying policy is already in the law, but to do it intentionally and knowingly, this protects the teachers. But it's a protection by having a clear mental state, not an accident.
Okay, Senator Altshuler.
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for your words, Senator Abbas, because indeed, this isn't even happening. This is a hypothetical, or this is meant to be chilling. Who's teaching this? We didn't hear any testimony that someone's actually doing this. We have zero testimony. I'm looking through the hearing report. There's nothing. So it sounds like this is a solution in search of a problem. And secondly, there is nothing in this bill that says it's just about 10-year-olds. This is for all students. This is K through 12. This applies across the board evenly. So no, it's not just about 10-year-olds. And also, no, we haven't heard any testimony that anyone's doing this. But yes, it does create a vagueness in the law that will chill discussion. That is true.
But the underlying policy is already the law.
You want to speak again?
Yes, the underlying policy is the law. All we're doing is adding a mental state to it. And I'm just explaining that I understand we may disagree in the underlying policy, but the mental state, I think, is important to have in there, because if they're talking about vagueness, this is clearly saying this is what the mental state you would have to violate the law. I can't imagine why you wouldn't have that in there.
Okay. Any other? Senator Sullivan.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. We know that this is being taught, and there was actually made national news again when it happened in Manchester, and there was the Wheel of Privilege, and I will tell you the people that reach out to me the most in my community when these things happen, and it is the parents of the minority children that they are bringing up to know that they can achieve anything in their life, that they are given the tools and the support of their loving families to be anything that they want to be. And then they sit in a classroom and say, well, if you are on this wheel of privilege and you have brown skin, or this list of things that pushes them to the back, tells them that they are lower than other children, they are worth less than other children. It's absolutely unacceptable. And those are the families that come to me. Those are the ones that come to me saying, I don't know why I'm sending my child to school, and they're coming home crying, saying, why am I less than the white child beside me? Those are the families we're standing up for with this kind of legislation. Thank you.
I think we've had a robust discussion here. Now you're ready for to vote on this
I
thing?
still have something to say.
You want to say something?
Yes,
Senator
I do.
Burgess?
Thank you. I hear from not just the families, but I also hear from teachers. And one of the things that I've become concerned about, first of all, I have families in my district who are interested in making sure that of all ages, that their children are academically and intellectually exposed about history from all sides. And it is, one of the things we know is that everybody learns a little differently, and they have a viewpoint that may be different. And one of the problems has become is that when a viewpoint comes home and it is presented a certain way, it can start a complaint against a teacher, and there are actually, fines that are related to this that could impact these teachers. And the things I hear from the teachers, I know somebody who, so I say this all the time, that it used to be that if you wanted to teach, or you wanted to be a firefighter, or you wanted to be an EMT or a law enforcement officer, like a public service, basically, there were waiting lists. It was a job everybody wanted to have. But now we have help wanted signs out in front of schools and fire stations and police stations because of the threats that people are under to how do I do my job without getting in trouble. If I think I'm doing it the right way and there's a complaint that's filed against me, could I lose my license, my livelihood, and not be able to teach again? Credential, license, I'm switching medicine and teaching here. And I remember specifically somebody who was like, it was door knocking, but it turns out it was somebody that I knew who had been a local EMT, but she'd also been a school teacher. And she said to me, I don't teach anymore. I'm too worried. The attitude or the impact of the way that we are characterized and the laws that are being proposed have put a bounty on the heads of teachers in the schools. And she didn't want to be subjected to this looming threat all of the time. So these are just real experiences that I'm sharing, that I have heard. So I'm just going to say that we're all, what the great thing is, we're all allowed to have different viewpoints. We all represent our constituencies. At the end of the day, I'll respect the perspectives of my colleagues as we move this forward. I'm just sharing where I'm coming from on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have an out to pass on the Senate Bill 431. Are you ready to take a vote? All those in favor of out to pass?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's 3-2. You want to take it out, Sullivan?
Sure. Thank you.
Senate Bill 574.
I would like to make a motion about to pass. Madam Chair, can I speak to my motion?
Yes, you may. You'll have a second first.
No.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I sat on the study committee for this bill over the summer, and we were actually introduced with some information that there was a study committee before that some years ago that the late, great Mayor Resorick was on. So this is a conversation that's been happening for a while. It's something that, for me anyway, my constituents have reached out to me repeatedly to ask if we could look at the SAUs and see if there's a better way to do this, to consolidate them. So this is just another step into looking into it a little bit deeper, doing it correctly, and giving the public opportunity to have some more feedback on it, give us more feedback on it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, in my folder, I have an amendment number 0734S.
Yes.
I don't know if that's something that we would be,
Oh, it's to replace. Let's replace the whole thing, right?
yes, and
Yeah. Okay, so I have a motion to pass, and I have a second, and now we deal with the amendment. And the amendment produced by Senator Innes is a replacement of the original bill.
the first page seems the same.
We have a motion on the amendment.
The amendment, it changes the effective date to November 1st, 2026, as opposed to upon passage. That's one change.
Which means that whoever's going to do the study committee has to get things together quickly.
Yeah.
November 1st comes around very quickly.
And then it also will repeal RSA 194-C:13. So I think it's getting rid of one commission.
Right.
That's just what,
The school administered unit study commission is repealed. And then we have this one, which a report due on January 1st this year. So I'm looking for a motion on the amendment.
I'll move to adopt the amendment.
To what?
I'll move to adopt amendment
Okay,
2026-0734S.
Second?
and we have a second. Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
I said aye,
Okay.
and I raised my hand.
Is that it, Archuleta?
I said aye, and
Okay.
now I'm raising my hand to
You
speak
do so
about the bill.
quietly, I can't hear it.
I usually move back.
Well, if you would, okay.
So now we have the bill
Or
with the
just ask for
underlying
nays.
amendments, and I have an out to pass with a second on the bill.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm reluctant to support this because it seems like this committee is not in favor of doing any sort of studies or commissions, because we couldn't do safe and resilient schools. So I don't know where we're going to find the capacity for efficiency for school administrative units either. It seems like if we're not going to be able to do study committees, we're just not going to do study committees. So
It's always a struggle, I think, with study committees of getting enough people together enough times to actually have a valid report. And that's the problem with study committees, but we just have to work with what we have. Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We heard a lot of robust discussions on school funding and cost per pupil and all this. We've heard it, not just this year, we hear it a lot. And if you look at the cost per pupil throughout the state, those numbers are all over the place. In some districts, you know, they're well below the state average, and some, they're just double the state average.
Yep.
And I think the idea is, to me, when it comes to school funding, the one thing I look at is, well, this is what it costs here, it costs something different somewhere else. The cost of living is different throughout the state, right? So looking at what's going on to try to maybe reel some of this in, I think it's important to understand, you know, this school districts, it's over $40,000 they cost per pupil.
Yep.
$35,000.
Yep.
You know, then you have communities, I could speak in my own district, Salem's below the state average by about $3,000. Pelham, same thing. You know, Manchester's well below the state average. They're around 19,000. So I'm not saying there could be explanations for that. I'm sure there is, but really determining I think getting a grasp of what's going on and why you have such a large gap in the cost per student, I think it would make a more informed policy on how we deal with education funding, not just in immediate time and going forward.
Any other comments?
So, Senator Ward, you know, study committees and commissions can be a struggle. It can be a struggle to get quorums at. And what it does is it gets in the way of really, you know, the purpose of, if we set up a study committee or a commission, which I want to be able to continue to have this as a tool available to the legislature, to, you know, to be able to, you know, take this outside of this forum that we're in now and outside of, you know, the House floor and the Senate floor and really dig in. I mean, that is the place, because you can't make a final decision sometimes without the work of these committees and commissions, and I have seen them do their job. I've also seen them get stalled by people not attending. Sometimes it's mileage. I understand it's conflicts. I can't say that I'm always perfect about these things, but especially if it's my study committee, I go. So there's an issue here that continues to come up about SAUs. I have people in my district are mixed on this, and actually my old district, you know, before redistricting, I had a different setup. They were not so mixed on it. They felt that, you know, there may be a way that the SAUs definitely have a purpose, but should there be some consolidation? They weren't opposed to it. So I feel like, you know, if these commissions shouldn't be dismissed because people aren't gonna, you know, that we have problems getting quorums, or, you know, maybe it's about paying mileage, we actually should step up and like be a lot more, you know, a lot more purposeful about study committees and commissions. Be selective about when they pass and be purposeful about the work that they need to do. So, you know, I can support doing this because it's not the final decision. It is a path to a final decision, and these are things that I want to know more about. That's it. Thank you.
Yep. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, is that a way that you can put a sunset on how long the commission is going to be working on this? Because it seems to me some commissions go on forever. And I think if you could set a date that, you know, the final report should be finished by.
I agree. I mean, the one, oh, sorry, go ahead, Senator Ward. I think, you know, a commission should run a year at the most. It should be over the course of the summer in between. I mean, I don't think this is meant to be permanent, but you brought something really important up.
It says that the commission shall report its findings by November 1st.
Yes, okay, right here, 2026, and for governor, usually it's the state library, the governor, the Senate clerk,
Right.
the House, and so we've got, so this does have a window. And the ones that I've been involved in, with the exception of appointments to other, to other, like the overdose fatality review commission, those are different. So this is searching and digging down deeper. So I'm going to support that. I can't say that I'm going to support what plan they come up with, but I'll support this moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. The bill with the underlying amendment, I have it out to pass with the second.
It's not to pass the amendment.
And the vote is, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4. Senator Altshuler, I didn't hear you.
Oh, well, you didn't ask for the nays, so nay.
Nay, okay. That's 4-1.
Move for consent?
Can we move this to consent, Chairman?
Oh, we don't have a vote.
We need to vote on it.
We're not unanimous, then we can't.
I have no objection to
Who wants to
consent.
take it out? Ambus will take it out.
We need to have a vote on the consent.
All those in favor of the consent?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I said aye, and I previously stated that I had no objection to consent. I know I'm way down here, but I am logging in.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yes.
Yep.
I think I blocked the objection of what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's the House bill.
We have one more?
That's it for the old ones, right? Do you want to take any suggestions for any of the ones that we heard today?
I think I'm ready for any of them.
To the background check, we voted on that one.
You wanna recess for just a minute?
Sure.
So I'll make a move to come out of executive session.
I don't think we have to come out, we can just recess, right?
So out of executive session and take a what, 5-minute recess?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we get to the corner? Coming out of recess.
Floor's cleaner than it looks.
Let's look at. Shit, no, shit. House Bill 1808.
Let it fly.
Madam Chair, I'll move on to pass.
On 1808. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, discussion. This is getting somebody to take care of all this data that we have collected. Somebody who can actually make sense of it.
And Madam
who
Chair, I
can
think
read it.
it's important to gather data, but if you don't do anything with the data, then probably shouldn't even waste your time gathering it. The only concern I really had was the price tag, and I will let the Finance Committee do its work with that.
Yeah, I would imagine this will go to the Finance Committee.
It could get waived off, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think they said that they put in $160,000 generally. I don't think it's gonna hit that based on, the explanation of it, because we're not getting like a new place for them to rent for this. Like, they'll be in the same building as everybody else, but I do understand that concern, and that's, finance will sort that out for us. But I think it's important. We have kids that do testing every single year, and we see in some schools their proficiency never goes up, or unfortunately sometimes it goes down, and it just lays there. We don't do anything with that. So hopefully this office will look at those proficiency scores and make a plan for these kids to make these schools better and stronger.
Any other comments? Seeing none, are you ready to vote on 1808? Had out to pass with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. She said yes.
Yes?
Yes, on this.
Okay. Out to pass 5-0.
And I'll move for consent.
Move to consent,
A second?
5-0 consent. Prentice, do you want to take it up?
Sure. Yes, Chair Ward, I'd be happy to. Trevor, I'm looking forward to your note.
Okay. Do you want to do the other two, finish up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. House Bill 709.
I'll move ITL.
I'll second.
We have an ITL on 709. Any discussion?
Although well-intended, Madam Chair.
Seeing none. All those in favor of ITL?
Aye.
Aye. So that's 5-0. Consent?
I'll move for consent.
Second consent?
All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye. I'll take it out. Okay, Ward will take it out. That's 709. We have one left, House Bill 1832.
I'll move on to pass.
I have ought to pass, so we'll have a second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna second it, because, I'm not going to say no to military children, being married to one myself. But I do have a problem with us continuing to prioritize some children over other children. We have 800 kids on the waiting list right now. I think it's time to get rid of the cap and give all children in New Hampshire truly freedom in education. And I think we could look at any child and think that they should be the priority. So I will vote for it because it gets more kids into the program and gives more families choice. especially our military families. But I do think it's time to just get rid of the cap and give all children the freedom that we've promised. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion?
Senator
Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Chair Ward. So as you heard during my questioning of the gentleman from Veterans Affairs, that, I mean, first of all, I fully support military families. Have one that I work with now and understand the nature of them having to move throughout the country and now with children. But I don't think we have the clarity on the role of the interstate compact for moving of children from, one state to another, and how that puts them already in a priority position. And that so my non-support of this at this time, because I want to honor military families, I don't want to certainly grow the EFA program anymore, but I think we have an outlier here with the military interstate compact, and that needs to be clarified. So I'm going to not support this at this time and seek clarity on it, because I think even the gentleman who spoke to this said probably it already does that job. So I'm not sure that this is needed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, you're going to have situations where someone relocates to New Hampshire on a, I don't want to say suddenly, but basically it's per their duty in the military. If, to the extent that there's a waiting list already, they weren't living in the state, or the student wasn't even eligible until, when that waiting list was being created. So allowing them some type of priority, I think, in this EFA program, part of it has to do with, we're talking about the parents moving around. But this focuses on the child, and if they're gonna use the EFA program and there's a wait list already, that's no fault of the child or even the family for that matter. Right now, the wait list has to do with New Hampshire families that are currently in the state already. We're talking about going forward. I think this would be a good policy to have, especially to the families that relocate here per their duty in the military.
If they're staying here because one of parent is in military, they're resident of New Hampshire for the time being.
Correct.
They can be resident of some other state for another 6 months or whatever. So regardless of their resident state, they can, if they temporarily are in New Hampshire, they are allowed to participate as a New Hampshire child.
Yes,
Okay.
and I agree, but there were some circumstances where the military family would relocate here kind of suddenly. That's what the testimony was. I think in that scenario, you want to allow that child.
Senator Altschuler?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the opportunity to hear from Mr. Grady frequently, as he is frequently seen before another committee that I've served on for a few years. Know him to be very straightforward, and he actually very straightforwardly presented to us that this was really not necessary, but it was nice. He said, those were his words, this is just a nice thing to do because the compact actually covers a lot of these issues. And, a student residing in New Hampshire, like I'm just looking at the bill, residing in New Hampshire with one or more parent who's on active duty, regardless of the physical location or place of residence of the active duty parent. So, these kids are covered, and I want to support the military families. I understand this. I have an inordinate amount of them in my district because we've got Pease and the shipyard right next door, and like he said, this is a nice thing to do, but these issues are already covered in the compact. It's not, it's.
Okay, we don't have.
It's
to
not
accept this
necessary.
today. Senator Prentice wanted some more
I'm going to
information.
I
check
think
into the
it's
compact.
an FN, right?
The what?
Is this an F? It's a house.
Oh, okay.
What was it, you said you need more
I
information?
want to know about the military interstate compact.
Military
For the placement of
interstate,
children,
okay.
MI 3 or C3, MI C3. and find out where that intersects with this, okay?
Okay,
Commissioner Broken Grounds is the name of the school. New Hampshire on their interstate compact board of.
Madam Chair,
So
if you
we-
wish to hold off, I can withdraw the law to pass.
okay. Senator Abbas is withdrawing the motion I want to pass, and you will take off your,
Yeah, I'll take.
and then we'll find out more about the military interstate contract and exactly what that means.
Yeah,
Okay?
I think
Good. Anything else that needs to come before the committee? If not, we're out of executive session.
Make a motion to adjourn?
second.
All those in favor of adjourning? Senate Education Committee has adjourned.